The strongest man in any room is usually the one who says the least. Not because he has nothing to say, but because he doesn't need to explain himself. His silence speaks louder than the loudest complaints. His pain is real, but you'll never hear him talk about it. Because he knows that true strength isn't found in telling the world how hard life is. It's found in carrying that weight without breaking, without needing applause, without asking for pity. In a world addicted to attention and validation, the man who suffers in silence becomes an anomaly, a mystery, a force. He's not trying to prove anything. He's not chasing sympathy. He's not performing. He's enduring. That endurance builds a different kind of power, a quiet authority that demands respect without a single word. Men who suffer in silence are dangerous in the best way. They've faced their demons alone. They've endured their storms without calling for shelter. They've been broken and rebuilt themselves brick by brick without anyone watching. That process forges something unshakable, a presence that doesn't need to explain itself, a man who can stand still while the world around him crumbles because he's already crumbled before and learned how to rise. We live in a time where vulnerability is confused with oversharing, where expressing every emotion is treated like strength. But there's a difference between vulnerability and self-control. A man who cries to every stranger is not strong. A man who acknowledges his pain, processes it, and then channels it into action. That is strength. That is the kind of man the world respects. Real men aren't loud, and they're not seeking comfort in likes and reposts. They're in the trenches doing the work no one sees, waking up early, training in silence, building something when no one believes in them, going to war with their bad habits, fighting urges that most men surrender to daily. Not because someone is watching, but because that's who they've chosen to be. Suffering in silence isn't about bottling emotions or pretending nothing hurts. It's about choosing to transform pain into purpose rather than parading it around for validation. It's about showing up for your responsibilities even when everything inside you is screaming to quit. It's about mastering yourself when the world tells you to collapse. You think the world doesn't notice? It does. The man who walks into a room with scars, but no sob story, commands more attention than the man who begs for acknowledgement. Respect is not given to those who complain. It's given to those who endure. The quiet man with calloused hands, sharp eyes, and cane breath, he gets the job done. He's the one others look to in chaos. He's the one who leads without shouting. You want to be respected? Stop narrating your struggles. Let your results speak. Let your discipline do the talking. Let your actions echo louder than your emotions. People may not applaud you now. They may not see your silent battles, but the world always takes notice of a man who can suffer and still show up stronger. We all hurt. We all break. But not all of us rise without asking the world to carry us. You want to be exceptional? Carry your pain. Own it. Turn it into power. Don't wait for anyone to give you strength. Become it. Because the world doesn't need another man complaining about how hard life is. It needs more men who stare into the fire and walk through it alone, silently. And those are the men who get remembered. Those are the men who build legacies. The world may forget your name, but it will never forget your example. Be the man who suffers in silence. Be the man who never folded. Be the man whose scars became symbols of strength, not stories of victimhood. The world respects that man. Be him. And when they ask how you did it, just smile, because they'll never understand, and they don't need to. Most men are noisy because they're empty. They shout about their pain because they haven't learned how to carry it. They broadcast every failure, every hardship, every setback, like it's a badge of honor, but it's not. It's weakness disguised as vulnerability. It's an excuse wrapped in sensitivity. Real strength isn't in how loudly you cry. It's in how quietly you overcome. The strongest men you'll ever meet don't announce their trauma. They don't ask for applause for surviving. They rebuild their life in silence. They don't tell you what they've been through. They show you who they become. And that's the kind of man the world respects. You know what takes more strength than yelling at the world? Enduring it. You want to be feared, respected, admired? Then stop bleeding in public. Stop trying to be understood. Stop thinking the world owes you compassion for what you've endured. Because no one's coming to save you. Not your friends. Not society. Not even God, until you start helping yourself. The longer you wait for someone to fix your life, the longer you stay a slave to your circumstances. But the moment you decide to shut up, man up, and move forward, that's the moment you start becoming dangerous. The silent man walks differently. He carries pain in his chest like a hidden weapon. He's calm because he's been through worse. He doesn't raise his voice because he's not desperate to be heard. His presence speaks volumes, even when his mouth stays shut. He's not emotionless. He's just selective with where he puts his energy. And that's what makes him powerful. He doesn't pour himself into arguments. He doesn't whine when life gets heavy. He pours himself into action, into vision, into building something so undeniable that the world has to acknowledge him, whether they like him or not. Most men think being seen means being loud, but real men know better. The real ones, they disappear into the shadows to sharpen their edge. They suffer in silence because they know greatness demands it. And when they return, they're unrecognizable, sharper, quieter, more disciplined, and more feared. This is the era of soft men who cry for attention, men who need likes and sympathy to feel valid, men who think struggle is something you post about instead of something you conquer. But that's not you. You don't wear your scars like jewelry. You bury them in your chest and let them fuel your next move. You don't open your mouth unless it's to speak truth, give orders, or uplift someone lower than you. You understand the truth. Nobody respects noise. They respect results. And results don't require applause. So be the quiet storm. Be the one who suffers with a straight back and a sharp focus. The one who uses his pain like fuel and his silence like armor. Every moment you choose to endure without complaint, you grow. Every time you resist the urge to speak weakness into the world, you take another step into the man you were meant to be. And when the world finally turns and asks, "How did you get here?" you'll smile, knowing they'll never understand what it took. Because you didn't need validation. You didn't need approval. You didn't need attention. You just needed discipline, purpose, and silence. And those three things, they made you unstoppable. You have to understand, your pain has value. Your struggle isn't just something to survive, it's something to refine you. The man who suffers in silence gains something no shortcut can give him: inner gravity, the kind of pull that makes other men pause when you walk into a room, the kind of energy that can't be faked, copied, or bought, because it comes from the hours no one saw, the tears you didn't shed, the battles you didn't broadcast. It comes from knowing you're capable of more than you thought, not because someone told you, but because you proved it to yourself in silence. You know who's dangerous? A man with no audience, a man with no one to impress, a man who doesn't need praise to keep going. Because that man can't be manipulated. He doesn't crumble when he's criticized. He doesn't lose momentum when he's ignored. He's not powered by attention. He's powered by discipline. And that's a man the world cannot control. You don't have to scream for respect. You don't have to explain your pain. You don't have to wear your suffering like a badge. Let the others do that. Let them waste their strength telling everyone how hard it is. You conserve your energy. You hold your fire. You wait. Because one day, all of it, the pain, the silence, the sweat, the rejection, it will translate into something they can't deny. Presence, power, proof. And when they finally look your way, when they ask where you came from, all you'll have to say is, "I never stopped working." A man who suffers in silence isn't emotionless. He's intentional. He feels the pain, the doubt, the fear, but he doesn't let it lead. He lets it burn quietly in his chest, fueling his actions without ever letting it leak out through excuses or self-pity. This is what separates the masculine from the performative. Most men today confuse noise with power. They think yelling about their grind means they're working. They think documenting their journey makes it real. But the strongest men don't document. They disappear. They vanish into the quiet and build. Because they understand this simple truth: real growth is ugly. It's not aesthetic. It's not glamorous. It happens when you show up at 5 a.m. and no one knows. It happens when you fail again and again and keep going without anyone cheering. It happens when you're doubted, ignored, and underestimated, and still show up like a soldier with no war to complain about. Silence trains your mind for war. You become calculated, patient, focused. You start seeing pain not as something to avoid, but as a tool to wield. Most men think strength is about domination, but real strength is about containment. It's about holding back the flood, holding back the explosion, holding back the scream, and still doing the work. That's what makes people follow you. That's what earns respect, not the words, not the posts, not the updates, the results. And here's the part no one wants to admit. Your ability to endure without speaking is a threat. Weak men will resent you. Loud men will mock you. Soft men will try to shame you because your silence exposes their weakness. Your self-control reminds them of their lack, and your discipline breaks their illusion that life should be fair. But it's not your job to fix them. Your only job is to build your world, carry your pain, and sharpen your mind in silence, in solitude, in struggle. Because the longer you stay silent, the louder your results become. And that's the voice the world actually listens to. Not noise, not feelings, proof. Keep walking, keep working, keep enduring. The world may not notice you now, but when it finally does, it won't be because of what you said. It'll be because of what you became. What you must understand is this: silence isn't weakness. It's a form of strength that modern men have forgotten. Because in the age of constant noise, silence is rebellion. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to scream their pain into the void and be validated. But real men, rare men, don't need that. They don't scream. They act. Every second you spend explaining yourself is a second you could have spent evolving. Every complaint you speak is a brick you remove from the fortress of your character. And every time you break your silence just to share your discomfort, you give away your power, one word at a time. The men who built empires, they didn't spend their days in forums venting their frustrations. The warriors who reshaped history didn't explain why they were tired. They took the hit, they absorbed the loss, and they moved forward. Stoicism is not about being numb, it's about being in control. When you suffer in silence, you learn control. You stop reacting and start observing. You stop reaching out and start reaching in. You train yourself to hold the weight of the world on your shoulders without asking for help. And the more weight you carry, the stronger you get. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You become grounded, unshakable. And that's terrifying to the world. Because a man who cannot be broken by pain is a man no one can manipulate. He doesn't chase dopamine. He doesn't seek permission. He doesn't need applause. He shows up every day and does what needs to be done. Not because it feels good, but because he gave his word to himself. And a man who keeps his word to himself is rare. He doesn't tell people his goals. He doesn't broadcast his setbacks. He doesn't ask for approval before taking action. He simply executes. Silence makes you surgical. It sharpens your instincts. It kills your ego. And most importantly, it teaches you that growth is not something that happens in the spotlight. It happens in the shadows, in the quiet, where no one is watching. Every time you suffer in silence, you're making a deal with the future. I'll carry the pain now, and you'll reward me later. And the future always pays. So stop explaining. Stop venting. Stop needing. Let others shout and scream and complain while you move forward, brick by brick, step by step. Because when the dust settles and the noise fades, the world always looks to the man who didn't flinch, the man who didn't whine, the man who suffered, built, and endured. and silence. There's a sacred transformation that happens in the silence, one most men will never understand because they never let it happen. They interrupt it with their whining, their doubt, their need for comfort and approval. But silence is the forge. It's where the old, soft version of you dies, and in that death, the real man begins to take shape. When you suffer in silence, you're doing what the world fears most. You're mastering yourself. And a man who masters himself is the most dangerous force alive. Why? Because he doesn't need anything. Not attention, not pity, not permission. He moves when others pause. He decides when others hesitate. He leads when others look around for help. He doesn't just walk alone. He dominates the path while others wait to be carried. That's why people respect a man who suffers in silence. Not because he's invisible, but because his silence speaks louder than their cries ever will. They watch him take hit after hit, loss after loss, and never break. He doesn't lower his standards. He doesn't lose control. He becomes sharper, more focused, hungrier. He doesn't explain his failures. He studies them. He doesn't beg for mercy. He adapts. When the average man is drowning in complaints, this man is swimming against the current with fire in his eyes. His trials become trophies, not because he shows them off, but because they built him into something unrecognizable from who he used to be. And that is where true fear comes in. Because the moment a man chooses not to complain, the world realizes they can't control him. They can't bait him into emotional chaos. They can't stop him with words. They can't touch him with guilt. He's already made peace with pain. And once a man makes peace with pain, there's nothing left to take from him. He's earned the only thing that matters: respect. Quiet, unshakable, eternal respect. Not through fame, not through popularity, but through his capacity to suffer silently, consistently, with purpose. And the ones who mocked him, that laughed at him for being too serious, too cold, too intense, they'll turn quiet too when they see who he becomes. Because deep down, every man respects the one who didn't break, the one who stood when everyone else sat down. So if you're in pain right now, good. If life is testing you, good. If you feel alone, perfect. Because this is where your silence will make you a legend. This is the moment you stop begging the world to care. This is the moment you stop needing to be seen. This is the moment you shut up, put your head down, and build something unbreakable. Suffer like a man, and one day, without even saying a word, the world will bow in respect. Understand this. Silence is not just a strategy. It's a weapon. The world has become addicted to noise. Men post every struggle, broadcast every setback, seek sympathy at every turn. But while they're busy performing pain, you're building something unshakable. You don't need likes, you need results. And you know real results require isolation, repetition, and grit. The kind of grit no camera can capture. You see, when you suffer in silence, you're not bottling weakness, you're refining strength. That fire burning inside you, it has no business being put out with complaints. It needs pressure, it needs time, it needs solitude. That's how diamonds are made. The man who keeps moving forward without applause is a rare breed. He doesn't need to be seen because he knows who he is. And in a world full of noise, that kind of man is terrifying. Not because he's violent, not because he's loud, but because he cannot be rattled. He doesn't flinch when others panic. He doesn't fold when the weight gets heavy. He doesn't beg for fairness because he understands life isn't about fairness. It's about what you can endure. It's about how much darkness you can walk through without losing your light. And that light, it doesn't come from words. It comes from action, from the pain you didn't speak, from the nights you didn't cry out, from the battles you fought alone. Most men will never know this kind of strength. They will avoid discomfort their whole lives and wonder why no one respects them. They'll surround themselves with comfort, but never feel peace. Because peace doesn't come from ease. It comes from power. The kind of power you only get when you've suffered and kept going. You don't need to tell the world your story. Yes, the world will see the results. There's a quiet rage in the man who builds in the dark, a force, a presence. The way he walks, the way he looks, the way he handles pressure, it all speaks without a single word. Because he's not performing for the crowd. He's performing for the man he was yesterday, and he plans to kill him. This world will break every weak man who complains. It rewards resilience, not noise. It bows to those who remain standing when others collapse. So stop asking why life is hard. Start asking if you're hard enough to handle it. Most men complain because they have no vision. They can't see who they could become if they shut their mouths and move their feet. But you're different. You've already stopped talking. You've already started building brick by brick, blow by blow, rep by rep, alone, quiet, focused, because the man who suffers in silence doesn't just become stronger, he becomes unstoppable. There's a certain energy to a man who has carried his own burden and never blamed the weight. It's magnetic, it's intimidating, it's rare. And the world recognizes that, even if it never thanks you out loud. Don't mistake silence for weakness. Don't mistake humility for submission. The strongest men on earth don't raise their voice, they raise their standards. If you feel alone, misunderstood, uncelebrated, good. That's your test, that's your advantage. Most men need validation to move, but not you. You move because it's right, because it's necessary, because the man you're becoming demands it. The next time life hits you, say nothing. Don't post, don't whine, don't overthink, get up, get to work. Let your scars be your secret armor. Let your discipline be your declaration. The world might not see you yet, but one day it will. And when it does, you won't have to explain a thing. You'll be undeniable. Because real men, men of weight, men of value, are forged in silence. There's a different type of strength that comes when you suffer and say nothing. A purity, a clarity. You begin to realize you don't need pity. You don't need permission. You don't need anyone to understand. You become so used to doing hard things in silence that it becomes your nature. You become calm, not because the storm stopped, but because you became the storm. The man who suffers in silence is not emotionless. He's not cold. He's controlled. He's dangerous in the best way, because his pain doesn't make him bitter. It makes him sharper. It turns wounds into wisdom. It turns stress into strategy. It turns pain into purpose. The silent man walks into a room and doesn't need to prove himself. His presence says everything. His eyes have seen more than he speaks about. His hands have built more than you know. He doesn't tell you what he's been through. He shows you what he became because of it. But there's a paradox here. The world respects men who suffer in silence, but it also forgets them. That's the weight you carry when you choose this path. You will not be celebrated while you're bleeding. You won't be thanked while you're grinding. There are no parades for invisible battles. No applause for the man who doesn't speak. Only the man who endures, builds, and finishes the mission earns respect in the end. That's what makes this road so difficult. You have to choose delayed honor over immediate comfort. You have to choose to be overlooked, doubted, misunderstood, and still move forward. Most men can't handle that. Most want a pat on the back every time they lift a finger. They want someone to validate their effort, reassure their ego, remind them they're doing okay. But not you. Not if you're serious. You suffer in silence because you're not after applause. You're after power. Power over your circumstances, power over your impulses, power over your emotions. And power doesn't beg to be seen, it demands to be earned. There's a reason men with discipline are respected more than men with talent, because talent is loud. It brags, it posts, it flexes. Discipline is quiet. It gets up early when no one sees. It works overtime without complaint. It learns in the dark. It trains without cameras. It suffers without asking for sympathy. When you master your silence, you master yourself. Most men break not because of pain, but because of the noise around their pain. They talk too much, they think too much, they seek too many opinions, every time something hurts, they call a friend, scroll for distraction, or shout into the void of social media. But all of that noise steals their focus. All of that noise delays their progress. Let me tell you something harsh. No one can fix you but you. No one can carry your burden. No one is built to endure what you're meant to endure. That weight you feel on your back, it was made for you. It's your path to power. And if you waste time trying to get rid of it instead of carrying it, you'll never rise. You'll never evolve into the man you could be. The world isn't kind to men who beg for kindness. It's built to reward the ones who adapt, who evolve, who don't need to be told they're strong, because they already know. If you have to remind people of your worth, you haven't built enough of it. Let your presence make the statement. Let your work write the biography. Let your pain be the architect of your future. The men who suffer in silence are the ones who become legends, not because they sought fame, but because they built something unshakable in private. They weren't chasing collapse. They were chasing mastery. While other men were performing, they were perfecting. While others vented, they invested. And when the dust settled, it was clear who built and who broke. Because pain is not the enemy, attention-seeking is. Every second you spend trying to make others see your pain is a second you could have spent turning it into power. You're either building your strength or broadcasting your struggle. But you can't do both. And here's the truth. Your silence is your sword. It sharpens your focus. It trains your discipline. It separates you from the average. The world has heard enough noise. What it hasn't seen is a man who keeps showing up every day, without complaint, without recognition, and without excuses. Think about it. The most dangerous man in the room is never the loudest. He's the one sitting quietly, observing, calculating, not saying a word, but ready to strike when it matters. He doesn't waste energy explaining himself. He doesn't announce his suffering. His silence doesn't mean surrender. It means strategy. Weak men need their pain to be seen. Strong men need their pain to be used. You were never meant to be ordinary. You were never meant to blend in, to drown in distractions, to die by comfort. You were meant to lead, to endure, to build. But the world is loud and comfort is tempting. So how do you resist it? By choosing the harder path every time. When your body aches, train anyway. When your mind doubts, work anyway. When no one believes in you, believe anyway. When the world is too loud, go silent. Because the man who walks into the storm without speaking a word is the man who walks out with power. And don't get it twisted. This isn't about shutting down emotionally. This is about control, mastery. Choosing when to speak and when to stay still. Choosing strength over sympathy. Choosing progress over pity. The world will always try to pull you back, to make you soft, to make you explain yourself. But you owe no one an explanation. You owe it to yourself to keep moving, to keep building, to keep enduring. Not loudly, not publicly, but powerfully. Every time you suffer without complaint, the world watches. It sees something it can't understand. It respects what it can't shake. And it fears what it can't control. You want to become that man, the one no one saw coming. The one who disappeared into silence and came back, forged from fire. The one who speaks so little but whose presence speaks everything. A man who isn't feared for his fists but for his focus. Not for his anger but for his discipline. Not for his pain but for what he built with it. Let others scream into the void, hoping someone hears. You let your results echo without saying a word. Because the loudest man in the room is usually the weakest. And the silent man is already winning. Most people think silence means you have nothing to say. But for a man who's been through hell and back, silence means everything. It means he's too busy building to bother explaining, too focused on the mission to waste time narrating the pain. It means he's already had the conversations with himself in the dark when no one else was around and came out the other side hardened, not broken. Because men who suffer in silence don't stay soft. They become steel. They're the ones who walk into rooms and change the atmosphere without saying a word. They're not chasing respect. They command it. And the reason is simple. Suffering shapes you, but silence carves you. Every time you choose to hold back your complaints, you strengthen your resolve. Every time you keep grinding, when you feel like quitting, you separate yourself from the average man. And here's the truth. The average man will never understand you. He'll ask, why don't you open up? He'll say, you need to vent. But you're not like him. You don't need to talk it out. You need to work it out. In silence, in sweat, in discipline. See, most men are addicted to noise. They post every thought, share every problem, seek out validation like it's oxygen. They think that exposure makes them real, that burying their soul earns them strength. But strength isn't shown in what you reveal, it's in what you withhold, in what you carry without a crowd, in what you overcome without asking for applause. You want to be the kind of man the world respects, then be the kind of man who can walk through fire without screaming, who can be surrounded by chaos and still move like a machine, who can take pain and weaponize it, turn it into power, not through noise, but through action. Because the truth is, pain will either destroy you or shape you. The weak man collapses under pressure and demands understanding. The strong man absorbs it, sharpens it, and lets it harden him into something unshakable. One turns pain into stories, the other turns pain into results. And here's the brutal reality. The world only respects results. That's the language it speaks. You don't get points for your trauma. You get points for your transformation, for what you built in the face of adversity, for how you move forward when you could have laid down. The silent man doesn't need to be understood. He needs to be undeniable. That means showing up every day with the same intensity, the same focus, the same hunger, regardless of how he feels. It means sacrificing comfort for consistency, emotion for execution, noise for legacy. And legacy, that's what it's all about. What are you leaving behind? A trail of complaints or a structure that outlives you? Every word you speak dilutes your discipline if it's not backed by action. Every time you stop to explain why you're struggling, you slow down the process of overcoming. So don't explain, don't justify, don't beg for empathy. Let your results do the talking. Let your posture show your strength. Let your habits prove your worth. Because the man who suffers in silence doesn't need a witness. His life is the testimony. His strength is the statement. And here's what's crazy. The same people who ignored you when you were struggling in silence will one day ask how you did it. They'll want your blueprint. They'll want your mindset. But they'll never understand what it took. Because they didn't see the nights you stayed quiet, the mornings you got up without motivation, the days you swallowed pain without flinching, and they won't get it because they never did it. That's what separates you. You didn't just suffer, you transformed. And you didn't transform because the world helped you. You transformed because you shut your mouth, faced the storm, and kept walking. You became the man others pretend to be. Because while they were posting, you were pushing. While they were crying, you were creating. While they were venting, you were evolving. And now, you don't need to say a word. Your presence speaks for you. Your discipline speaks for you. Your results speak for you. Because the world doesn't listen to noise. It listens to power. And power is built in silence. The world doesn't hand power to men who complain. It hands it to the ones who act, who bleed behind the scenes, who walk through hell without announcing it. Every man alive will be tested, but only a few will pass because only a few will embrace the silence. The truth is brutal. No one wants to hear about your problems. They want to see what you built in spite of them. That's what earns respect. Not your story, your results, not your breakdowns, your discipline. You can cry in the dark, but in the light, you stand tall, and you move like nothing touched you. The man who suffers in silence doesn't carry less pain. He just carries it better. Right? With posture, with patience, with purpose. While others look for shoulders to cry on, he builds his own shoulders broad enough to carry a legacy. He's not immune to struggle. He's just not ruled by it. And that changes everything. Silence isn't weakness, it's control. It's choosing not to waste your energy on explanations, excuses, or pity. It's using every ounce of your focus to move forward. And when you do that long enough, people start to notice, without you saying a word. They feel the presence of a man who's been through wars, who carries scars under his skin, not on his sleeve, who walks like he knows something others don't. Because he does. He knows the price of strength. He's paid it. And he'd pay it again if it meant becoming sharper, colder, more focused. Let them talk. Let them post. Let them explain. That's not your language anymore. Yours is built in discipline, sharpened in solitude, carved by action. Every moment you resist the urge to explain yourself, you take back power. Every moment you choose to keep building instead of complaining, you widen the gap between you and the average man. You are not him. You are not the man who breaks when life pushes back. You're the one who clenches his jaw, lowers his head, and pushes harder. The one who chooses progress over pity, work over whining, discipline over noise. This path is not easy. It's not glamorous. No one's clapping for you. But when it's over, when the weak are gone and only the strong remain, you'll be one of the few left standing. And you'll know why. Not because anyone helped you, but because you refused to stop. There's something sacred about a man who keeps his battles private. He doesn't post his pain. He doesn't text his suffering to strangers. He doesn't ask the world to carry what only he was built to bear. Because he knows, the moment you hand your struggle to others, you lose the right to own your strength. Strength without suffering is shallow, and silence without pressure is just avoidance. But when you suffer with purpose, in silence, and keep showing up, you become dangerous, unshakable, respected without speaking. That's the kind of man this world bows to. Not because he demanded it, but because he earned it. The silent man isn't pretending to be strong. He's just too busy becoming stronger to tell you about it. He's not performing discipline, he lives it. He's not posting motivation, he is the motivation. Not because he says anything, but because he moves with weight. Like a man who's seen fire and didn't flinch. You'll know him when you see him. He doesn't react like the rest. He doesn't panic when things go sideways. He doesn't whine about discomfort. He embraces it. He expects it. Because he understands. Pressure is a privilege. Hard times are where warriors are made. And those who collapse under hardship were never built to lead. You want to lead? You want to build a legacy worth remembering? Then you must suffer silently again and again until your pain stops hurting and starts sharpening, until the weight becomes light, until struggle becomes familiar, until you stop needing comfort and start craving challenge. Men who suffer in silence don't crumble, they conquer. Because they've trained in the dark for wars, the loud ones will never survive. And when the world finally notices them, it's too late. The work is done. The power is earned. And the crown is already on their head, whether anyone claps or not. Remember this, nobody owes you comfort, nobody cares how tired you are. Nobody's waiting to reward you for being a victim. Life is war, and the quiet man is the one who wins it. Not because he shouts, but because he never stops marching. So be that man. The one who doesn't post, the one who doesn't ask, the one who just moves, builds, bleeds quietly and smiles while doing it. Because that's where your strength lives, in the pain no one sees, in the battles no one hears about, in the fire. You survive without making a sound. Keep going. The world doesn't need more men who share. It needs more men who endure. And when it's over, when the dust settles, you won't need to speak. Your results will. There's a reason the most dangerous men are the quiet ones. It's not just a cliche. It's truth built through time. Because the man who suffers in silence becomes immune to noise. He doesn't care what others say. He's heard the worst from life itself and lived to tell no one. His strength isn't loud. It's rooted, deep, solid, unshakable. When he walks into a room, people feel something. Yeah, they don't know why, but they respect him. Because silence carries weight. It means he's fought battles you'll never see, and he's still standing. That kind of man doesn't need to explain himself. He doesn't need to justify his choices. He doesn't ask for permission. He's not chasing likes or sympathy or validation. He's chasing mastery. He's chasing legacy. He's becoming a man that his future son can look up to and say, that's what strength looks like. Most men today are addicted to noise. They need to be heard. They need to be seen. They need to share everything, every struggle, every step, every emotion. But the man who suffers in silence, he doesn't need to share the storm. He becomes the storm. And here's what people don't realize. Silence isn't emptiness, it's control. It's choosing to hold the line when others fall apart. It's choosing to carry the weight no one else can handle. Because someone has to. And that someone is you. This world is watching you. Not your words, your actions, your posture, your work. They're watching to see if you fold under pressure or forge yourself in it. And every time you choose silence, every time you hold your pain instead of broadcasting it, you grow. You become the kind of man no one dares underestimate. Because the truth is this: your power grows in proportion to your silence. Not because silence makes you special, but because it keeps you focused. When you're quiet, you hear your own mind. You start to see what really matters. And that clarity, that's where your edge comes from. So suffer, but suffer with purpose. Struggle, but struggle with intention. And never waste your pain. Turn it into something, a business, a body, a skill, a future. Because the man who transforms pain into purpose doesn't just survive, he dominates. You want to be feared in the right way? Become a man who never complains and never explains. Keep your circle small, your mouth shut, and your work relentless. Let the world guess what you're thinking now, what you're planning, what you've overcome. And when they ask, why will you never said anything, look them in the eye and say, because I was too busy becoming. See, silence isn't just about not speaking. It's about what you do instead of speaking. It's about filling the silence with action, with discipline, with movement. Because complaining is easy. Posting is easy. Even talking about healing is easy. But waking up every day, dragging your pain behind you, and still putting in the work, that's rare, that's powerful. That's why the world pays attention. Not when you cry, but when you conquer. Men who suffer in silence don't hide their pain because they're ashamed. They contain it because they respect it. Pain is energy. Directionless, it destroys. Focus, it builds empires. So they funnel that pain into the gym, into their business, into their craft, into their family, into anything that outlives the moment. They don't talk about being a man. They show it. Because real masculinity isn't performative. It's consistent. It's boring. It's quiet. It's choosing the hard thing when no one's watching. It's choosing the right thing when no one will reward you. And it's carrying your load without dumping it on anyone else. If you want to be respected, stop talking and start becoming. Because the world doesn't respect men who feel sorry for themselves. It respects men who transform themselves. You're not owed anything. Not by your family, not by your friends, not by the system. You're owed nothing. And that's your greatest freedom. Because once you stop waiting to be given, you start building to become. You don't beg for a better life. You build one. Silence doesn't mean inaction. It means precision. It means thinking long term. It means not reacting to every insult, every failure, every moment of doubt. Because most of the time, the one who reacts loses. But the one who watches, learns, plans, strikes. It's not about being cold. It's about being calculated. About protecting your energy so it only goes where it counts. Your silence becomes sacred. And in that silence, your vision gets clear. You're not blinded by emotion. You're driven by purpose. The loud man is a slave to his emotions. The silent man is their master. That's why men who suffer in silence eventually rise. They outlast the noise. They outwork the critics. They outgrow their past. And by the time anyone notices, it's too late because they've already won. You want to be that man. The man who never needed a crowd to become a giant. The man who stared into his darkest nights and didn't flinch. The man who suffered, sacrificed, and sharpened alone. Because when you build in silence, no one can destroy what they didn't see coming. You don't need their sympathy. You don't need their understanding. What you need is grit, precision, patience, and a reason so deep, so personal that no amount of pain can pull you off course. That reason, that fire, that's yours alone. Protect it, feed it, let it shape you, and don't say a word about it. Let your results speak. Let your presence announce your worth before you even open your mouth. Men who suffer in silence don't do it for applause. They do it because it's the only path worth walking. And the world doesn't give you power. You take it, and the quiet man, he takes it without warning. So keep your head down, keep building, keep moving. And when you finally rise, they'll ask how you did it. You won't say a word. Because the truth is, they were never supposed to understand.